Hey everyone, James Marin here, and in this video, I'm going to talk about what I feel are some must-have Steadicam accessories. So what do I mean by must-have accessories? These items are things that you want to have in your Steadicam kit because either they'll make your life more efficient, they'll make your life easier, or perhaps it's something that you rarely use, but you'll be glad that you had when the opportunity presents itself. And to be clear, these are all things based on my personal preference. Everyone's personal preference is, of course, going to be different, and in a way, that's sort of the beauty of Steadicam. But I will say that having these items, having these accessories have made a big difference and are absolutely worth looking into. Okay, so the first accessory that I highly recommend that one has in their kit is called an SOS plate. It's this plate right here, and it stands for Steadicam on Sticks. So what an SOS plate, what this plate does is that it allows you to take your camera build that is already made for Steadicam and allows you to pop on the camera directly onto a tripod without having to change anything. So what that means is that you don't have to take this plate off your camera build in order to put it onto a tripod. This just goes directly in, it drops in like this and locks via this lever, and essentially your camera build goes directly from Steadicam onto sticks, all because of this plate, and you don't have to change anything. And also what's great about this particular SOS plate made from CamJam is that it already has a tripod quick release plate already built into the SOS plate itself. And so if you're working with a bigger fluid head like an O'Connor 2575, this just drops right in, locks into the Euro plate, and you're good to go. If you're working with a smaller fluid head, then it also has a few like 1/4-20 and 3/8-16 taps already built in. So all you have to do is screw in your tripod's quick release plate and then it'll pop right in as well. So this is a totally universal SOS plate. In fact, it is meant to work with any Steadicam plate, any of the manufacturer's plates, and mine is for a Tiffin M1 and it fits for this SOS plate. But if you had like a GPI Pro or really anything else, it is universal. And the way that it becomes universal is because the screw over here could change the width of what's happening inside here and basically become wider or more narrow depending on how tight you have it, making it a universal SOS plate. Again, this SOS plate is made by a European brand or company out there called CamJam. And although this is kind of overpriced, it runs about $450 to buy one of these things, you'll get a ton of use out of it. So in my opinion, although it is a little bit on the pricier side, it's still worth the money because you'll get so much value out of it. Okay, next up is what's called an arm post. Now, specifically a 12-inch arm post. This is really great to have whenever you're shooting really tall people. I'm about like 5'8", 5'9", so fairly average. Anytime that I'm shooting someone that's like 6 feet or taller, it's been really great to have this because instead of having to boom really high and kind of keep it that way, which could not really be tiresome, but it gets a little annoying, it's much easier to just have this on, and the length of the post creates height, of course, because now the rig sits a lot taller and you don't have to boom up. All you have to do is just have your rig sit a little taller because this arm post makes it taller. Okay, next up is a low mode bracket. This is almost like the inverse of this. If this makes your camera rig sit taller, this lets your camera rig be lower because it also has a 12-inch post, but now it's attached to a low mode bracket. So your rig can essentially be attached via this pin here, and it inserts into your handle, into your gimbal handle, and basically is now attached via the pin in this post. This in particular is really great because instead of having to push the rig down way low, it's already hanging 12 inches lower because you have this bracket and post combo. So you don't need to again, push the rig down really far or sort of like do this weird squat crouch situation, because this makes your life a whole lot easier. If you have a low mode monitor, all you have to do is attach this like you would any other low mode bracket and invert the rig, balance it real quick for low mode, and you don't have to reposition your monitor or, you know, make a full sort of reconfiguration of your sled in order for it to be optimized for viewability for low mode. This low mode bracket and 12-inch post combo will run you about $200, and you can purchase it over at cinematicprecision.com. And of course, you also want to get just a regular low mode bracket, one that doesn't have a really long post attached to it, so you could do all of your other low mode operating. Without a low mode bracket, the rig tends to fly a little too close to you, and you can kind of bump the camera itself into your arm, and there's just not enough distance. So this also not only makes your rig sit a little bit lower, but it also creates a little bit of distance so that there's room for you to actually control the rig. Since I talked about a low mode monitor a little bit earlier in this video, I'll go ahead and share with you which low mode monitor I use. Here I have a Blackmagic Video Assist 12G SDI HDR. None of that really means anything to me. The important thing is that this is the newer version of the Video Assist, and what's great about it is that it's highly improved. It's much brighter. It claims to have a brightness of 2500 nits, which is really bright, or at least definitely bright enough for viewability outside, which is of course very important for Steadicam operators. This will run you about $795, but what's really cool about it is that it also doubles as a video recorder. And to record, all you need is a high read-write speed SD card. I have the SanDisk Extreme Pro. It's the 256 gigabyte size, and I'm able to record around 3.5 hours of ProRes LT. The ability to record my footage for me has been an absolute must. For one, I love to analyze my footage the next day and see all the nuances of each and every take to see what I can improve in my operating. The other reason I love having this monitor / recorder is because at the end of the day, I have all my footage. I no longer have to bug anybody months after the project is wrapped to grab clips for my reel or anything like that. Now, in terms of using this as a low mode monitor, it's really great for the very same reasons that I have everything else here: efficiency. Again, I always try to be as efficient as possible in my operating, in my workflow, and this definitely allows me to do that, because instead of having to reposition my monitor or change anything on my sled, this is already attached, it's ready to go, and all I have to do is flip into low mode, or all I have to do is balance and then flip into low mode, and I don't really have to change anything. Okay, next we have an EVF bracket. This is a really simple accessory, but it makes a really big difference and is one of those things, again, that is super nice to have. This EVF bracket is specifically for Alexa cameras, and specifically the Alexa Mini, and there are other digital cameras that have the dovetail on the EVF, and the dovetail portion slides right into this little insert and is locked by the lever that is on the EVF itself. And what this does is that allows you to put the EVF wherever you feel is going to be best for your particular camera build. In most cases, I find myself putting this either on the top handle in the back or on the top handle in the front, depending on where I need to have more weight in order for the camera build to be a little bit more balanced. And I also tend to have it on because a lot of DPs prefer to have the EVF accessible and just ready to go, because they could either view the LCD screen, or first ACs could just come up to the camera and change settings super quickly without having to use an app on their phone or anything like that. It's just really nice to have this in order to have an EVF on the camera build for whatever reason. This EVF bracket is also from CamJam, but Jerry Hill over at Steadicam Moves, or steadymoves.com, has pretty much the same thing for a little bit cheaper. I think it's around 80 bucks, and it does the same thing. Okay, next up is the Steadicam long plate, which is this plate right here. And this plate is perfect for zoom builds that are of course going to make your camera build really long. And in most cases, because the zoom is so long, the center of gravity of the entire build ends up being in a really funky place, like in the middle of the lens. Now, if you only have a regular size Steadicam plate, that means when you have to go onto a zoom that you'll have to scoot the camera build really far back because of how front heavy the camera is. And if you're scooting the camera build really far back, that might mean that you don't have enough length on this plate to actually go far back or as far back as you need to in order to balance the rig. Having the long plate, which is essentially double the size of this plate, has been really, really great to have because it solves that whole issue with not having enough length on your Steadicam plate. Next up, we have the other accessory that made that zoom build possible, and that's this gold mount XLR plate right here. The reason I have this gold mount XLR plate is so that I could click it onto the back of a camera's battery rack and power the camera through my sled. And through this plate and this M1 specific cable, I'm able to just click into the XLR plate, plug this into my M1's top stage, and then I power the camera through these two items. And with this combo, I'm essentially able to power any camera that is able to be powered by 12 volts. So it in a way acts like my universal power supply. And instead of having to buy a bunch of camera specific cables or camera specific camera cables, all I need is just these two cameras. And if the camera could be powered by 12 volts, then I'm good to go. Next up, we have more custom made camera cables. Shout out to my friend Steven Siegel, who makes all my custom cables. I highly recommend that you go to Steven for your cable needs. He makes power cables and BNC cables, really anything that you need, he's able to make it. Steven was able to make me this RE 24 volt power cable that is made specifically for my Tiffin M1 sled. And the reason that I have this cable is that if you ever plan on flying film, you're going to need this in order to power the camera. Sure, you could fly the camera with an onboard battery, but in most cases when you fly film cameras, the onboard batteries are really bulky and heavy and often are on the side of the camera, making the balance of your build really wonky. So instead of flying with the battery, it's really important that you have a power cable in order to make the build a little cleaner and make it work for you. With this RE 2-pin 24 volt power cable, you could power pretty much any film camera that you will be flying in the future. So it includes the SR3, the 416, the 435, the 235, the LT, pretty much any camera that can be powered via 24 volts and a 2-pin LEMO is what this cable can be used for. So this RE camera cable and the XLR cable with the XLR plate, I feel really covers your bases in terms of cameras, because if you're flying film or like an RE Alexa Classic, you use this, and for everything else, you use this combination and you're pretty much good to go. I also had this Sony dummy battery with a LEMO cable made by Steven Siegel as well. It just, like any other battery, just clicks into the back of my monitor. And with this cable, I'm able to power through my top stage and get power to my monitor. I don't need to use a regular battery or worry about charging Sony batteries for this, because as long as my sled has batteries, which it always does, this monitor will get power. And lastly, one of the biggest things and most helpful things in my kit has been this cart. This cart has been a lifesaver, because a lot of times when you're shooting at a location, you tend to move around in the location itself. Whether it's a big location, you have to go from one end of it to the other. It's been really great to just have everything that I need on this cart and just roll to where I need to be. I remember before I had a cart, I had to lug all of my stuff around, and it was really just a big pain in the ass. And I also had to have more assistance from the ACs and stuff to also carry things over and just move from within the location. And again, this thing has been a lifesaver just because you just roll around, and the wheels that Innovative makes for this cart are really, really great. I've taken it basically like off-roading, or basically taking it off-roading because the wheels are so durable. And again, just having the cart really saves you from having to waste time, because you're not wasting time or taking time having to take each piece of your kit over to where it needs to be. You just have it over here and it just acts like a home base. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you got a lot of value out of what I presented here today and are thinking about maybe purchasing some of these things so that your life is made a little bit easier as well. I appreciate you taking the time to watch, and I hope you have a great day.